¿Qué es lo que nos mueve? Nos mueve el futuro. Diseñar, transformar, desarrollar y gestionar hoy las infraestructuras que la sociedad necesitará mañana. Nos mueve el cambio y la innovación. Por eso, somos líderes globales en la construcción de centros de datos, contribuyendo a la transformación digital y a mejorar la conectividad global. Damos vida a soluciones innovadoras para impulsar la nueva demanda energética, cada vez más verde y sostenible. Para ello, creamos grandes redes de transporte de energía y factorías de baterías de última generación. También participamos en actividades tan relevantes como la obtención de minerales críticos y la extracción de tierras raras, claves para avanzar en materia de digitalización y descarbonización. Nos mueve impulsar el progreso de la sociedad, conectar lugares y personas. Desarrollamos nuevas y mejores infraestructuras de transporte, como sistemas autónomos basados en inteligencia artificial e innovaciones tecnológicas. Aceleramos la transición hacia sistemas de movilidad más eficientes con la construcción de líneas de metro, autovías y aeropuertos de última generación que favorecen entornos urbanos más habitables. Nos desplazamos, trabajamos y vivimos en un mundo cada vez más interconectado y sofisticado, sin límites. También nos mueve pensar en las personas y en lo que rodea a las personas, aportando las mejores soluciones a sus necesidades. Lo hacemos mediante el desarrollo de infraestructuras sociales. Somos una referencia en el desarrollo de instalaciones sanitarias y espacios deportivos. Nos mueve la singularidad de los proyectos, la excelencia. Participamos en el diseño y construcción de estructuras icónicas en todo el mundo, que demuestran nuestra capacidad para convertir grandes ideas en realidad. Son estos desafíos, estos retos, los que nos mueven a seguir construyendo el mundo del mañana. Juntos hacemos realidad nuestra visión, One Group, One Team. Y lo conseguimos a través de iniciativas como ACS University, con la que pretendemos seguir liderando la innovación en mercados cada vez más sofisticados y complejos. Transformamos cómo la gente vive, se mueve, trabaja y se interconecta en el mundo. Juntos estamos desarrollando el mundo del mañana. ACS. Construimos un futuro mejor.
Buenos días.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders. As they finalize the attendance list, which the Secretary will give you more information on, I'd like to greet everyone who's either here in the hall or attending remotely, and also thank all of those who couldn't actually come and have delegated their vote or have voted prior to this meeting over remote media. So I'll present the panel for the general meeting. Apart from me, we've got our CEO, Juan Santamaría, and also the General Secretary, José Luis de Valle, and the other members of the Board of Directors, namely Carmen Fernández Rozado, María José García Beato, Emilio García Gallego, Mariano Hernández Herrero, Pedro López, Catalina Miñara Brugarolas, José Eladio Seco Domínguez, María Soledad Pérez, Lourdes Maiz Carro, and Lourdes Fraguas Gadea. The Deputy Chairman, Isidro Faine, was unable to come for professional reasons. And also with us, we have the Corporate General Manager, Mr. Lozano, and Eugenio Lorente, who's the attaché for industrial affairs. And with us, we have the Notary of Madrid, Cruz Gonzalo López Muller Gomez, who's been asked to minute the proceedings at the AGM. And, of course, although the shareholders have been able to ask for information and delegate and proxy and vote over remote media prior to this AGM, as announced in the quarter meeting, the Board of Directors has also reserved resolved to make it possible for people to remotely attend the AGM in real time so that they can personally exercise all of their rights remotely. We report that should the systems and electronic services and communication services go down, the AGM will be suspended for the time necessary to deal with the matter and will immediately come back online once we can re-establish it with those systems. For that purpose, as soon as possible, we will publish on our ACS website or through the direct broadcasting of the AGM over the web page the fact that we have more information and are re-establishing the meeting. So now I hand over to the Secretary to give you the data in the quarter meeting and also the attendance data.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The call for the meeting was published on April 2nd, 2025, on the website of the CNMV, together with other relevant information, as well as El País, La Expansión, ABC, and Cinco Días newspapers, and also the following day, April 3rd, in the official bulletin of the Mercantile Registry and on the company's website. I would like to ask the shareholders that, given that the call notice is very long, we take it as read. I understand that that's okay, and while we get the final or preliminary quorum figures, we'd like to let you know that according to Article 6 of the call notice, the shareholders or the representatives who wish to take the floor remotely in this AGM and request information or clarification with regards to the information provided by the company to the CNMV or on the agenda may also or about the holding of the previous general meeting, the auditor's report, or present proposed resolutions that haven't been done so before, should send us their question or comments through the link that has been established on the corporate website from today at 9 a.m. and until this general meeting is validly constituted. If you wish to speak and have your comments or questions quoted verbatim in the minutes, you should say so in that text. These texts that are sent in remotely will be read out by the Secretary during the Q&A session, and the requests for information or clarification sent remotely by the participants will be answered verbally during this general meeting or in writing within the following 7 days as required by the Capital Companies Act. It's basically up to 9 a.m. today, or from 9 a.m. today and until the present moment, no requests for questions or comments have been received. On the other hand, the shareholders who are present or represented in this room who might wish to take the floor can approach the notary's desk, which is on the left of this stage. And if you want your question to be included in the minutes, you should also let the notary know. And if you want it quoted verbatim, you should also hand that question in writing to the notary when you request the floor, so he may then compare it with your comments. And to check that there's enough quorum for this general meeting, we can tell you that the current attendance list includes shareholders and representatives attending this meeting in person, those following it remotely through the electronic participation platform established in the company's website, as well as the shareholders who have voted or delegated their vote remotely before this meeting. And in this sense, and as for the attendance numbers, both in person and remotely and represented, are the following. Capital present and represented, a total of 738 shareholders, which represent 181,344,326 shares, which is 66.75% of the share capital. Of these, capital present, 186 shareholders, 117 in person and 69 remotely. That is, that 117 represent 2,264,634 shares, which is 0.84% of the share capital. And those voting remotely, 69, is 25,582,688. That's 9.42% of the share capital. And represented shareholders, 552, owning 153,482,004 shares. That's 56.5% of the share capital. And I repeat that the total capital present and represented is 66.75% of the share capital.
Many thanks. Consequently, I can declare this annual general meeting to be quorate in order to be held at second summons, although, of course, the final quorum will be posted to the website of the company within 5 days following this annual general meeting, which will give you a complete set of data which will be included in the minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the indication of we can say that if there are any reservations regarding what's been said on the valid constitution of the AGM and the number of shareholders with voting rights who are attending either personally or through proxy in their participation in the shareholder equity, those attending remotely, you can send in a communication over the link, which we've already mentioned before, which you have, in order to make sure it is duly minuted. People here, shareholders here, can go directly to the notary's desk at the front of the hall. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, and many thanks for coming yet again this year to the ACS Group AGM. I'd sincerely thank you for the confidence you have placed in us, either by being here today in person or attending over our website, because it's such an important moment now. It's not just to have a look at what we've achieved, but also to reaffirm our vision, to align our efforts and continue working for the growth and success of ACS. This is a path towards sustainable growth over an ambitious strategy plan that combines investment and an attractive remuneration for our shareholders. The excellent results we achieved in 2024 reaffirm our commitment to developing and transforming the sectors and markets that we operate in. Our strategic focus over these years and the progress made in the group's integration have made it possible to reach a new record for sales, 41,633 million euros, an annual increase of 16.5%. Operating profit, which you'll be hearing about in greater detail later when Juan Santamaría gives his report, have been excellent, with gross operating profit, or EBITDA, growing 28.7%, up to 2,456 million euros, with net attributable profit of 828 million euros, which is 6.1% more than in 2023. This growth is based on the outstanding international footprint of the ACS Group. We're already one of the Spanish companies with the greatest business volume in international markets. If you look at our sales beyond our frontiers, you can see that they're over 38 billion euros. They account for 91% of our total turnover. The group's performance has made it possible to offer a total return on shares for our shareholders of 26.9%. With the dividends that we've paid last year, which were paid out at 2.01 euros per share, and also the annual revaluation of our securities at 20.6%. Just in the last 5 years, the annual mean return for shareholders has been 14.1%. Looking over the last 25 years, our share performance has been very positive. Whoever invested 1,000 euros in our company at the end of 1999 and reinvested their dividends would now have approximately 23,000 euros, which is a total accumulated return of 2,200%, which is 13.3% a year over 25 years. Just to give you a context, in the same period, the IBEX 35 gave annual mean returns of 4.8% and the Dow Jones 7.6%. Without a doubt, the growth and the high returns have been possible because of the transformation of the group over this first quarter of a century. Over these 25 years, we've evolved from a Spanish construction and services company to become an international infrastructure and engineering group. ACS is a worldwide benchmark as an operator and supplier of infrastructures, leading in development and construction and operation of projects for digitization, mobility, power demand, transport, biopharmacy, environment, construction, natural resources, and advanced technologies, amongst others. If we look backwards in time, we're really proud to see how far we've come, along with you. As I briefly said, in 1999 we were a Spanish company, focusing on the integration of several domestic construction companies to consolidate our position in Spain. And we're still still in the first stages of our diversification worldwide. And at the moment, 85% of the activity of the ACS group was generated in Spain at that time. But now, 25 years later, we've consolidated our presence in the United States, Europe, Canada, and Australia. And our main market is now the United States, where we get 61% of our total turnover, followed by Asia Pacific, which is 21%, and Europe, with 14%, of which 8% comes from Spain. And that means that over 25 years, we've boosted our turnover 15 times, from 2.7 billion euros to 41.6 billion euros, which we reported for 2024. This year, 2025, we expect to go beyond that 45 billion figure. We've also gone from having a net attributable profit of 85 million euros in 1999 to 828 million in 2024. And our EBITDA has also shot up, increasing from 141 million euros to over 2.45 billion euros. So we're really proud of this consolidation of ACS as a leading international group which can offer innovative solutions for traditional infrastructure, but also for new generation infrastructures. Over these decades, the ACS group and our products have been growing. 25 years ago, half of our profits came from services and the other half from the building industry. But now our business is much more sophisticated. 60% of our profit comes from integrated solutions activities, thanks to our company's Turner Construction, whose executive chairman, Peter Davorin, is with us here today, and we'd like to thank you, Peter, for everything you've done, and also CIMIC. Both companies carry out advanced engineering projects in digital infrastructure, sustainable mobility, power demand, mining, and social infrastructure. 23% of the profits come from infrastructures, where we have leading companies such as Abertis and Iridium. The other 17% come from our engineering and construction services, with the operations of Hochtief, Dragados, and Flatiron Dragados. Flatiron Dragados, it comes from the union of the civil engineering in works of Hochtief and Dragados in North America, where we've created the second biggest civil engineering and construction company with a great potential for growth and a geographical scope covering 24 states in the USA and 8 provinces in Canada. This diversification in business and markets has meant that we've been able to increase our backlog from 2.6 billion euros in 1999 to over 88 billion euros at the end of 2024. But this backlog is not just figures. It's the outcome of hard work which has made it possible for us to carry out some of the most emblematic projects in the world in all the markets and sectors where we operate. The ACS brand is now present worldwide in many iconic buildings, which we present in the infographics book, showing our grand projects, which is fantastic. We've been the protagonists of great civil engineering works, promoting innovation, connecting places and people, facilitating mobility, and boosting the progress of society as a whole. We've built bridges connecting towns and cities and even countries, as is the case with the Geordie Howe International Bridge, which is the longest suspension bridge in North America, connecting Canada and the US over the Detroit River, with an extension of 2.5 kilometers and 6 lanes. We've also, in Spain, built emblematic buildings like the Constitution Bridge in Cádiz, which is the third biggest suspension bridge in Europe, which runs more than 3 kilometers long. Without a doubt, one of the most spectacular civil engineering works in our country. And in mobility, we're proud to be worldwide leaders in the construction of transport solutions. In the future, 65% of the population will live in urban areas and will be obliged to be sure that they can have excellent connectivity. Our contribution to this was made clear when we built the next generation metro stations and lines in cities like New York, Toronto, Oslo, Madrid, Barcelona, or as you can see here on the screen, Sydney, where CIMIC is playing a key role in developing the different stages of the metro lines, which is the most ambitious public transport project in Australia. As you know, we're not only specialists in urban mobility solutions, we also have projects for the construction, reform and extension of airports like those in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Hong Kong, where we apply the most modern technology in the world. The work done by the ACS group over the last 25 years have helped to transform the way that people move, the way they work, and the way that they're interconnected. But we've also helped to improve their quality of life with the construction of sanitation, cultural and sports facilities, which, one how or another, have had a positive socio-economic impact. We're especially proud that in sanitation, we're working hard through Turner in the United States, where they have more than 100 years track record in the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which is a benchmark institution in pediatrics. The ACS group has become a benchmark in culture as well, where we've built the Elba Philharmonic building in Hamburg, which is one of the most high-tech concert halls in the world, with a capacity for 2,200 people and a privileged location on the Elbe River. We've also been involved in sports complexes where we're a leader worldwide. Recently, we've developed the sports infrastructures in Los Angeles, where in the next few years you'll be watching the Olympic Games and the Soccer World Cup. Our subsidiary, Turner, has been responsible for building the SoFi Stadium with a capacity for more than 70,000 people, which can be extended to 100,000. It's a multidisciplinary stadium with the American football teams playing there. You probably know their names, the Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers. And in the Los Angeles complex, Turner has also built the Intuit Dome, which is the new pavilion for the NBA Los Angeles Clippers. This is an impressive stadium with a capacity for 17,700 spectators and is 100% charged by solar energy. So as you can see, our companies have the capacity to carry out the most iconic projects worldwide. Think, for example, of the two highest skyscrapers in the world built by Turner, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, 828 meters high, and also, we've been participating in the construction of Merdeka in Kuala Lumpur, 679 meters high. Just to give you an idea of what that means, its spire alone is more than 140 meters high. But the story doesn't end there. We're still making progress. We're still investing and generating value. Over the last 25 years, we've transformed operation, gone international and become much more sophisticated as we continue to build the future and reinvent the infrastructure sector. We're well positioned to do that because we have more technology, more talent and more resources than ever. I've talked about our completed projects, but now I'd like to talk about some which we've been awarded in 2024 and which will soon be there for you to see. Last December, we were awarded the construction of Meta's new data center in Louisiana, the biggest that the company has built so far, with an investment of over $10 billion, which will have more than 500 operational workstations. It will play a vital role in the progress of artificial intelligence. In August 2024, we were awarded the contract to finance, construct, and then operate for 50 years the highway SR 400 Express Lane, which is more than 25 kilometers of controlled ramps in Atlanta, Georgia. The project is worth more than $10 billion. And meanwhile, Dragados is now building the Pearl Harbor dry dock in Hawaii, which has been thought out for nuclear submarines of the U.S. Navy. It's a strategic project that we feel especially proud of because it's really prestigious and it requires a lot of precise technology in an excellent location. In Madrid, Dragados in 24 was awarded the construction of the new connection station in Atocha to connect the high-speed trains going between Atocha and Chamartín. And in those stations, too, we're working on their refurbishment. And then in sports installations, Turner was, in 2024, awarded the construction of the American football team stadium for the Tennessee Titans, which is a key part of the reurbanization of Nashville City. Meanwhile, our European engineering companies, Hochtief and Dragados, have been awarded the construction of the Justice cities in Frankfurt and Madrid, respectively. Recently, we've heard that our North American subsidiary, Flatiron Dragados, will be carrying out the light train project in Maryland in the US. And then in services, Clece was awarded several contracts for the maintenance of sanitation infrastructure in Catalonia, including the hospitals at Belviche, Viladecans, and John 23rd. We're very proud of the social work being done by Clece as well, showing how they can help to encourage labor inclusion for vulnerable people. All of these awards wouldn't have been possible without the professional commitment of more than 157,000 workers in the ACS group, who I'd like to thank very specially today on behalf of the board of directors for the hard work they've put into our company's projects. Over the last 25 years, we have multiplied the number of employees in our company by 7. Our workers are the basis of what we are today and will help us to go on offering further opportunities of innovation, training and development to them so that their professional careers can follow the growth of the group as a whole. And that's why we set up a fantastic academic project, which is our ACS University, which our CEO will later be talking more about. This success was also built up on sound partnerships with excellent companies to help us, and also with our shareholders helping us along the way. In 2024, we incorporated Criteria Caixa, which is an international benchmark as an institutional investor, and so they have seated Isidro Faine Casas on our board of directors, and he has been appointed as deputy chairman of ACS and a member of the executive committee. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here today because he had other professional commitments, but we do have, and we're very grateful to Francisco Reines being here, who is the executive vice president of Criteria Caixa. And so here in front of everybody here, I'd like to thank him for being here at our AGM. As you know, Criteria Caixa manages the business equity of the La Caixa Foundation, the biggest private foundation in Spain, which has as a priority to contribute the economic resources which make it possible for the foundation to do what it has undertaken to do and to help us working with new generation projects in the ACS group. Ever since La Caixa started working over more than a century ago, they've tried to add value to society. And with the Fundación joining us, our foundation, Fundación ACS, can also help society with several cultural, educational, research, social and environmental initiatives which boost the quality of life of citizens. And especially in 2024, we've helped the people who were so badly hit by the storms in Valencia in October, which has shown our solidarity with all of society. It's a privilege to have Criteria Caixa as a strategic partner, and we're very satisfied that they are there as a shareholder, sharing our long-term vision of our project and our commitment with society. So many thanks for trusting in our project for growth, returns and innovation. I'd also like to thank Javier Echenique, who left us in December. His death was cause for enormous sadness after all the years we've shared with him. For more than 20 years, Javier was helping us to expand the ACS group. His example, his dedication and his commitment have left an enormous gap. But at the same time, he's left us with the inspiration, looking forward to the future with determination as we go on working with our shareholders, employees, clients, suppliers, and other institutions helping us in the ACS group. So, dear shareholders, once again, I'd like to thank you for accompanying us over these 25 years in which we built far more than just infrastructures. We've built up a worldwide group, benchmark in innovation, a company that invests in growth, and this has been possible because of your support and the support of thousands of professionals worldwide and the strategic vision which has led us throughout. At the moment, we're at a key time within the context of consolidating our services in key markets. We look to the future with great excitement. We're ambitious and we're sure that we have a sound base and the capacity and agility to adapt and transform ourselves in the face of new demands. We'll continue to innovate, continue to grow, and apply a long-term vision which makes it possible to create value for our shareholders, employees, clients, and for the public at large. This is the path we want to go down in order to boost progress and contribute to the future of people and of the places where we operate. We'll continue to work to build tomorrow's world. Many thanks.
A ver.
Thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm going to give the floor to Juan Santamaría Cases, who is our CEO. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this General Shareholders Meeting of the ACS Group. It's a great honor for all of us to have you here today so we can share our achievements of 2024. Every step we take towards greater growth for ACS is possible thanks to your support, for you placing our trust in us throughout our history. And we are holding this General Shareholders Meeting in the middle of our 2024-2026 strategy. We've updated our targets, we've increased our capabilities, we've promoted integration and innovation, and continued to reinforce the cohesion between the different companies in the group. In the current geopolitical context, ACS is in a privileged position in order to continue to offer integrated solutions, engineering, construction for international infrastructure development now and in the future. The current scenario is filled with great challenges, but also great opportunities. We have a very solid starting point to adapt to the current economic, financial, and competitive conditions. And in this context, our operational and strategic capabilities place us in an optimal position in markets with high growth potential, where ACS will be able to continue to create value thanks to our global presence, our expertise, and our competitiveness. Specifically, in the next years, digitization, demographic trends, and new energy infrastructures will continue to play a crucial role in the agenda of governments, investors, and companies, generating strong demand in strategic sectors like healthcare, technology, or amongst others, defense and energy. Probably the demand for solutions for digital transformation will be the fastest growing, from the deployment of telecommunication networks to the creation of facilities for semiconductor manufacturing or data centers. This sector offers multiple opportunities for development and investment. And there, as you know, the ACS group is strongly positioned with projects in the US and Europe, Latin America, Asia, and Oceania. Also in sectors where we have traditionally been very active, like sustainable mobility or transportation, which will continue to attract large volumes of investment in the future. We must move towards cleaner and more efficient models, which means we will need new infrastructure projects, which will also help us to create cities and urban environments that will be more livable and more sustainable. So in sum, we are at a critical crossroads, seeing a process of geopolitical transformation, which is opening up new business opportunities globally. And in the ACS group, we have the confidence, the expertise, and the resources we need in order to grow in these strategic sectors and markets. But now I'd like to summarize the results of last year. The group had an excellent 2024 in terms of its business performance and the implementation of our strategic plan. Our turnover grew strongly by 16.5% to 41.6 billion euros. Driven by strong volumes in strategic markets, particularly digital infrastructures and healthcare and drug development, for which grew 21% year on year. By market, 61% of our turnover was created in the US, followed by the Asia Pacific with 24% and Europe with 14%. Our EBITDA grew over 28% to 2.45 billion euros. Net ordinary profit was 684 million, that's 14% higher, and exceeding the target that we had defined, which was 12%. Net profit was 828 million euros, and earnings per share was 3.23 euros. That's 7.8% higher than the previous year. In 2024, we also generated 2 billion in operating cash flow. That's practically double the amount in 2023. And with this figure, we've widely exceeded the average annual range of 1.2 billion, which we announced as guidance for our 2024-2026 strategy. The strong cash flow has enabled us to allocate 862 million to shareholder remuneration and also to make strategic investments for approximately 1.15 billion, including the capital increase of Abertis, 650 million, to continue to support its growth, acquisition of an additional 10% of TIS, investment in data centers, infrastructure projects, and energy, 190 million, an increased stake in Hochtief up to the current 80% for a total of 130 million euros, and the acquisition of engineering firms in Australia for 79 million. On the other hand, our current net debt position is just over 702 million, so very similar to the level of 2023. Since in like-for-like terms, this includes the consolidation of the debt from the TIS acquisition of approximately 1 billion euro. Also, the backlog grew to a record 88.2 billion. That's up 14.7 billion or 20% year on year, which is almost 25 months of turnover. This increase was due to the significant number of awards in the year for over 51.5 billion. Approximately 50% of these had to do with new generation infrastructure markets, driven by strong growth of the digital infrastructure segment and with important contracts for data centers awarded in every region. As you know, since we launched the 2024-2026 strategy, the group's business has been divided into three main activity segments. On the one hand, integrated solutions, that's Turner plus CIMIC, and engineering and construction, that's Dragados Hochtief and the American subsidiary Flatiron Dragados, and finally infrastructures with Abertis and Iridium. Net attributable profit for the first segment, integrated solutions, with 536 million, infrastructures 205 million, and finally engineering and construction 156 million. I'm now going to give you a detailed breakdown of the main operating metrics for each of them in 2024. Turner is our fastest growing company in the group, with a profit before tax growing 37% year-on-year to 570 million. In fact, Turner is currently bringing in 48% of the group's profit. Turnover was 19.2 billion euros. That's 19% higher than the previous year, and awards grew over 31% for a total of over 24 billion. All of this has meant it has a backlog of 31.9 billion, which is a record high. Amongst these new awards signed in 2024, I will mention the development of the largest Meta data center in Louisiana, the Tennessee Titans Arena in Nashville, both of which our chairman has mentioned in his presentation, the construction of the Health and Behavior Sciences School at the University of California, transformation of Terminal 3 West of the International Airport of San Francisco, as well as several projects in the semiconductor sector in the U.S. Also, Turner has continued to deploy its strategy for international growth and acquired Dornan in 2023. That's a company that's based in Dublin with an annual turnover of 800 million euros and over 1,000 employees. Dornan has a very similar business model to Turner's, with customer base of quality technology multinationals with presence in such relevant markets as the UK, Ireland, Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Switzerland, amongst others. CIMIC has also continued to grow in 2024 with turnover of 10.2 billion euros. That's 10.2 million euros. That's up 20%, driven by the TEES integration and the growth of advanced technology and energy markets. Profit before taxes was 475 million. That's up 27%, and new awards exceeded 12 billion. So the backlog is currently at 24 billion euros, which is 23% higher. Amongst the new projects awarded to CIMIC last year, I would mention a project for asset maintenance and operation of a nickel and copper mine in Canada, the second phase of the battery plant of Western Downs, even in Australia, the refurbishment of the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in Sydney, a section of tunnels for the metro in Victoria, Australia, and some hydro facilities in Chua Chu Kang in Singapore. I'd also like to mention that in parallel to our increase in stake in TEES, CIMIC has continued to expand its position in energy management and natural resource management. Through TEES and Shetland, it has acquired the engineering firms Prudentia, Minsol, Pybar, and Mintrex. All of these acquisitions, plus the Dornan purchase by Turner, have brought in special capabilities in engineering and systems in line with the goals of our strategy, whose progress I will describe later. In engineering and construction, Dragados also had excellent operating performance, with turnover up 5% at 5.8 billion euros, and with profit before tax up 21% to 130 million. Their backlog was 17.6 billion, thanks to significant awards in sustainable mobility and transportation. For example, the construction of the connection high-speed station in Atocha in Madrid, Line 3 of the Seville Underground, both mentioned by our chairman already, the Fornebu metro station in Oslo, and the City of Justice in Madrid. The engineering and construction activities at Hochtief have also grown significantly, with sales and profit before tax up 10% to 3.7 billion and 62 million, respectively. Backlog is over 11 billion euros. That's 12% up in the year. We're very happy with the awards that have been signed this last year, including construction and operation of a rapid charging network for cars in Germany, construction of a data center campus in Warsaw, and the construction of the City of Justice in Frankfurt. Also, in engineering and construction, as you know, last year we announced the integration of Flatiron and Dragados in the US. This has enabled us to create the second largest civil engineering contractor in the US, with a turnover of over $6.2 billion and a joint backlog of approximately $16 billion. The new company has multiple technical capabilities and qualified resources, as well as expertise in large infrastructure projects, which will enable it to grow in the civil engineering sector in the US, which is growing rapidly. Flatiron Dragados obtained very relevant awards last year, including the construction of the Wild Horse Dam in Colorado in the US, the extension of IH-10 highway in Texas, the maritime terminal at Hoboken in New York, and the Ile d'Orléans Bridge in Quebec, Canada. A light train line in Maryland, the US, with a system of 21 stations, is another good example of these awards. In the infrastructure segment, Abertis also had excellent operating performance, with its revenues up 9.8% in the year, thanks to the geographical diversification of its portfolio, tariffs linked to inflation, and construction of new assets in Puerto Rico and Spain. Traffic volumes grew 1.5%, driven by strong trends in heavy vehicle traffic and excellent performance in Spain, Mexico, and Brazil. Additionally, Abertis had continued to increase its asset base through acquisitions. Specifically, in the last 12 months, it has completed the acquisition of the Santiago Los Vilos toll road in Chile, the A12 toll road in Pamplona in Spain, the extension of the concession for the Intervías highway in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and recently an agreement to acquire Highway A63 connecting Irun with Bordeaux in France. Abertis is a company with a solid growth model thanks to its strategy, which is based on essentially two pillars. On the one hand, optimization and extension of the average life of its portfolio of assets through mutually beneficial agreements with the corresponding governments and authorities. And second, inorganic growth through highway assets in strategic markets. That show that long-term growth potential for Abertis. In the last 6 years of operation, the company has increased its EBITDA by approximately 900 million, more than offsetting the number of expired projects in those years. At the same time, the average half-life of its portfolio has increased by 2 years, and the platform has deleveraged from 6.6 times to 5.4 times the debt over EBITDA ratio. So all in all, there are three drivers for the excellent performance of Abertis these last few years. The growth of a platform replacing the concessions that have expired with new ones, the diversification of its markets, and a gradual reduction of its financial leverage. Finally, Iridium continued to consolidate its position as the main company in greenfield project development in the group. The company is undertaking strategic projects like the new SR 400 highway in Atlanta, or investment in data centers in the US, Europe, Australia, and Chile. Iridium offers strategic services for the development of greenfield assets, integrating our technology, incorporating the highest operational standards with more efficient processes from the very first stages of the projects. The company specializes in data center development, a sector which I will explain later, We already have a portfolio of over 2 gigawatts, which we expect to grow in the future. In fact, we have already identified opportunities for an additional 4 gigawatts globally. And these results are part of our 2024-2026 strategy, which we announced, as you know, a year ago. It's a roadmap combining the company's sustainable growth through an ambitious investment plan, maintaining attractive shareholder remuneration. All of it in line with the business model that has enabled us to accelerate the group's development from a construction company to a comprehensive engineering company offering advanced technology solutions as well as civil works and building. And I think it's worth reviewing the basic pillars of our strategy. First of all, reducing the risk profile of our portfolio. Second, maximizing our leadership position in high value-added, high-growth sectors. And finally, investing in infrastructure development, both for traditional infrastructure as well as new infrastructure. In 2024, we have been achieving these objectives. For example, we've been able to maintain a high percentage of low-risk projects in our portfolio, which are currently at over 85%. And we've done so by increasing the weight of partnership contracts in the new projects. We've also promoted our position in high-growth, high-added value segments, such as digitization, infrastructures, energy, defense, mobility, biopharma, and critical minerals. Projects connected with all of these segments have represented over 50% of all awards last year. And finally, we've also moved forward in our investments in traditional and new generation infrastructure developments following long-term megatrends in these sectors. And let me give you a bit more detail about this last part, investment, because that's the basis for our current and future growth. We are able to invest approximately 6 billion euros a year until 2030. And with that, we want to undertake investments that will enable us to capture the opportunities in the market. That is 6 billion euros over the next 6 years. And all of it without increasing our leverage ratio whilst maintaining our current high levels of shareholder remuneration. This as a result of our strong cash flow generation and a very solid financial position with net debt under 0.3 times our consolidated EBITDA. Our ambition and with this investment capacity, we currently have, as I've told you, a backlog of over 2 gigawatts for data centers under development, and we've identified opportunities for an additional 4 gigawatts in Europe, Australia, and the US. Recently, we have taken a very important strategic step with the establishment of ACS Digital and Energy, a new company with the aim of leading the investment in digital and energy demand projects in the group. An initiative with a very clear vision, driving technological transformation and energy sustainability by integrating innovative solutions which will maintain our leadership position in an increasingly demanding and competitive sector. So in summary, we follow the roadmap we announced a year ago, and we have achieved our growth and profitability targets. We have ambitious objectives, and that's because we are aware of the group's experience and resources, but mostly because we understand our talent's potential, which is what really sets us aside, the enormous professional expertise of our employees, over 157,000 of them in Europe, North America, South America, Asia, and Oceania. In all of these places, I've been able to meet and work with committed, dedicated professionals with excellent levels of qualifications, with a shared culture, shared DNA of all the group's companies, with the shared values and principles that have always distinguished ACS. We are extremely lucky to have these high-quality professionals, and from management, we have the great responsibility of equipping them with the tools they need to transform the world of infrastructures. They are our most valuable asset. They are our main competitive advantage at ACS, and that is why this year we've taken a step further and have launched the ACS University, which is an educational platform based on our company's expertise, with which we want to offer our employees the ability to develop new skills and continue to progress in their careers. We know that training and qualifications are particularly important in the sophisticated context of today's markets. I'd also like to mention the upcoming launch of our GEN project, with the participation of 2,000 engineers with connected offices and resources all over the world, who will contribute their best practices and experience in different markets and sectors all over the world. GEN will mean not just our support for growth and development, but it will also help us to consolidate and disseminate the legacy that we've built in these years of the group's history. It's just the start of a process in which we will continue to launch initiatives to connect our group's global network. We want to bring together professionals and knowledge and expertise so we can continue to add value to our customers, helping them respond to their current and future challenges and contribute to the progress of this sector and of society as a whole. Also, dear shareholders, this talent and the group's efforts will be very important in order to guarantee the sustainability of our products and processes, which is still one of our highest strategic priorities. Example of that are our very ambitious targets, which include, amongst other things, becoming climate or carbon neutral by 2045. We have, of course, become part of the most relevant sustainability indexes globally, and this is recognition of which we're very proud and which reinforce our belief that it is the right path to follow. Dear shareholders, before I close, I would like to thank you all again for your trust in ACS. We are optimistic about the group's future. We know that our global footprint, the high added value projects and the talent in the group mean we are perfectly positioned to continue to add value to our different stakeholders, value which will continue to enable ACS to grow in size and excellence. That's my goal as CEO of the group, a group that has doubled its market cap in the last 3 years and which has the aim of continuing to drive the future of infrastructure development. I hope to see you all next year in order to share all the news of the group and share with you the successes and milestones which we are already achieving this year. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Juan Santamaría, for that presentation. And now I would like to ask the Secretary, in accordance with Recommendation 3 of the Code of Good Governance of Listed Companies, the CNMV, to report to us on the more relevant corporate governance aspects and read out the proposed resolutions that the board is presenting to this general meeting. Thank you, Chairman. Since the proposed resolutions have been widely shared and since they are very long, I would like to ask, as on previous years, that you allow me to just read a summary of these proposed resolutions. And so item 1 of the agenda, approval of the 2024 individual financial statements and management reports, also the application of results, voluntary reserves, 20 million for capital reserves according to Law 27/2014, non-financial report, also widely shared, and the approval of the management by the Board of Directors during 2024. As for item 2 of the agenda, the proposed resolution, the ratification of Mr. Isidro Fainés' appointment as director, re-election for another 4-year term of the independent director, Mrs. Carmen Fernández Rozado, and as well as José Eladio Seco Domingo. So item 3 in the agenda, what we are voting on is the annual director's remuneration report for 2024, the director's remuneration policy, and As far as item 4, as in previous years, the approval of a capital increase and also reduction, which is that scrip dividend topic, which will be structured as every year through an initial execution generally in the month of July and then another in February of the following year. So it's a very long proposal, but it's purely technical. Item 6, the agenda, no, sorry, item 5, the agenda, same thing again, the authorization for the acquisition of treasury stock with the legal limits, and in order to then reduce the acquired treasury stock if the board deems it appropriate. And then there's the authorization to the board of a capital increase with a limit of 50%, with a possibility of up to 20%, excluding the preferred purchase options. And then the next item, which is the authorization to formalize and register agreements. And finally, simply for information, an amendment in the regulations of the Board of Directors. Also, and in order to comply with the Code of Good Governance for listed companies, the chairman's request, as he just stated, according to recommendation 3 of the code, since the last general meeting, we have been deploying and improving our corporate governance system. And the committee, the Audit and Sustainability Committee, has reviewed the corporate governance regulations and together with the responsible areas and units has updated some codes and policies and other corporate rules so they could be adapted to recent regulatory changes and best governance practices in order to make sure that the group's governance is appropriately designed given the unique characteristics of ACS and its groups. And so based on different guidelines, recommendations and rules that have been recently approved in matters of corporate governance, sustainability, compliance, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data protection, amongst other things, the Board of Directors has carried out an extensive update of the company's corporate governance system, reviewing different codes of conduct and basic policies in these areas, all of which has been reported in the annual corporate governance report and in the management report, as well as the non-financial information report and the sustainability report. I should also emphasize the update of the regulations of the Board of Directors that was approved in March of this year in order to update the responsibilities of the board and its committees in the context of these new good governance practices and recommendations and rules, and also for full disclosure to shareholders and markets, and in compliance with Recommendation 6 of the Code of Good Governance, we've made available to shareholders, together with the call for this general shareholders meeting, the report of the Appointments and Remuneration Committees and the Audit and Sustainability Committee, as well as the Audit and Sustainability Report on related transactions. I'd also like to mention that of the 64 recommendations of the Code of Good Governance for listed companies in the annual corporate governance report for 2024, see that 6 are not applicable to ACS, and for the rest, we are in full compliance with 56 of recommendations, and number 2, 25, and 27 are complied with partially. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Secretary. And now we're going to open the Q&A session. I'm going to give the floor back to the Secretary for this purpose. I am told by the notary's desk that there's been no request for the floor, and therefore there will be no questions or comments. Oh, it seems there is one shareholder who wishes to speak and who has just approached the notary's desk.
Rogaría al señor accionista que quiere intervenir.
Could the shareholder who wants to take the floor to please introduce him or herself and say how many shares they own or represent. Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Juan Manuel Aguilera. I have been a very stable shareholder of this company. I'm very proud of the fact. And I have a question about presentations we've heard today. Just like to congratulate you on the chairman's and CEO's dedication and achievements. But I've noticed that you have a huge turnover of 41 billion euros, and yet a very small margin because it's 800 million profit, which is only 2%. This might be a naive question, but is it that hard for a company of this caliber with your global footprint to increase that margin? And again, financial costs for new projects, do they take up that much of the profit? Because obviously we cannot compare it with the profit margin of other sectors, but a 2% profit margin seems a bit low. So I wonder if it's possible. Perhaps, of course, competitive conditions make it impossible, but you could maybe increase your margins even slightly, and that would mean a spectacular profit. But again, my congratulations to all of you.
Pues muchas gracias, Juan Miguel, por la.
Thank you very much, Juan Miguel, for that question. You're correct that our business performance is based on our seeking low-risk contracts traditionally. And we have two very strong groups in the company. One is Turner and the other one is Thiess, which contribute a very significant volume of our revenue, and most of their projects are low risk. And that's why in the last years we have tried to increase added value through advanced technology where we obtain higher margins. And so we hope to improve that average margin in the next years. That is definitely where we are placing our focus. And in the semiconductor market, battery plants, artificial intelligence, and so on, we will be able to increase our margins above those we obtained from more traditional markets like civil engineering or construction in general. But we also don't want to increase our risk, and that's why we do this very prudently. Thank you very much. Any other last-minute questions from the floor? And if not, then I think... What? Oh.
Pues si no hay más.
Well, if not, then I'm going to ask the secretary to guide us through the voting on the proposed resolutions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As usual, we will now proceed with the voting. Shareholders voting against or abstaining in the room will let us know, and we'll assume that the difference will be votes in favor. Of course, in the minutes, we will reflect all the votes that have been received remotely as well as by proxy vote. And so first of all, we're going to vote on the approval of the financial statements and management reports for 2024 for the companies and the consolidated groups, ACS, votes against and abstentions. And the rest we assume to be in favor, so approved by a broad majority. Then the application of the results, allocation of profit loss for 2024, voluntary reserves with the exception of those 20 million that will be allocated to a special reserve. Votes against, abstentions. The rest are assumed to be in favor, so also approved. As for this item, approval of the non-financial report, the sustainability report for 2024, votes against, abstain, therefore also approved. And finally, in this item 1, approval of the board's performance in 2024. Votes against, Abstains? Okay, so the rest are assumed to vote in favor, so approved. As for item 2, ratification, appointment, and re-election of directors, we need to vote separately on each of these sub-items. First, ratification and appointment of Isidro Fainé Casas as a proprietary director. Votes against? Abstentions? The rest assumed to be in favor, so approved. Second, re-election as independent director of Mrs. Carmen Fernandez Rozado. Abstentions? Votes against? Rest assumed to be in favor, so approved. Next, re-election of José Eladio Seco Domínguez, also as an independent director. Votes against? Abstained? So therefore also approved. And finally, this item, setting of the number of board members at 14. Votes against, abstentions, the rest assumed to be voting in favor. Next item, director's remuneration, or sub-items, advisory vote on the 2024 annual director's remuneration report. Votes against, abstentions, rest assumed to be in favor, so also approved. Next sub-item, approval of the director's remuneration policy. Votes against, abstentions, rest assumed to vote in favor, so also approved by a majority. Item 4, capital increase charged fully to reserves and authorization of a capital reduction to retire treasury shares. That's the scrip dividend. And as I mentioned, in 2 moments in time, with a maximum of 270 million euros. Votes against, abstentions, rest assumed to vote in favor, so approved. Item 5, authorization for the acquisition of treasury stock and capital decrease, amortization of that said treasury stock. Votes against, abstentions, the rest assumed to vote in favor, so approved by a majority. Item 6, authorization to the board in accordance with Article 297(1)(b) of the Corporate Enterprise Act to increase the share capital by means of cash contributions of up to half the amount of the share capital within a maximum period of 5 years in one or more occasions and in the time and in the amount approved by the board. Within the aforementioned maximum amount, the board is assigned the power to exclude preemption rights up to a maximum of 20% of the share capital. Votes against, abstentions, rest assumed to vote in favor, so approved. Item 7, purely formal, delegation of powers to execute and formalize resolutions by the board. Against, abstentions, the rest assumed to vote in favor, so also approved. Final item, purely for your information, on the amendment of the rules of the Board of Directors I described before. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, then, as a result of the votes cast by shareholders and their representatives, all proposed resolutions have been approved by this general meeting. And I'd also like to inform you that if you have any comments or with regards to these results and you're attending remotely, you should let us know through the remote attendance link. And if you're here in person, you can approach the notary so that it may be reflected in the minutes. Mr. Chairman, following your indications, I'd like to say that the directors who've been re-elected should... oh, sorry, my microphone was off. I was just saying that those directors who have been re-elected and who are here in person should also approach the notary's desk so they can sign their appointment and declare that there are no incompatibilities. Well, now that we have completed the voting on the items in the agenda. I'd like to thank you once again for your attendance and for your trust in the board. And I'll just close this meeting at this point. Thank you.